Can everybody hear me in the back? I'm Tom Williams. I'm the superintendent of schools, and it's my pleasure to welcome everyone here tonight, especially the people we're recognizing into our first Kirkwood School District Alumni Hall of Fame in our induction ceremony. So thank you everybody for coming. The Alumni Hall of Fame has been a labor of love for many volunteers and administrators in the Kirkwood School District. This is a great evening. A lot of people put a lot of work into tonight, and I want to thank everybody that was involved with it. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the president of the Kirkwood School Board, Scott Stream.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, and thank you all for coming. As an alumnus, parent, and board member, it is an honor to be with all of you this evening. Congratulations to our inductees and their families. Some of our inductees this evening live in the area and visit the high school often. Many of you are from out of town and haven't been back to the high school since, well, just say it's been a few years. If you were able to take the tour, I know you, like I, must be proud of the wonderful campus our community has provided under the leadership of Dr. David Holly, class of 1967. I hope all of you continue to think of Kirkwood High School as your home and come back and visit us often. At this time, Jim Felton, the Director of Development, will lead us in the dedication of the Pioneer Award and the Alumni Hall of Fame. Thank you.
I want to introduce one more person who I forgot to introduce, a very special person, someone who just recently, he's a member of the faculty at Kirkwood High School. He also was recently named the Missouri Teacher of the Year, Bob Becker. Congratulations.
Now it's time for Jim Felton. You know what, as I look at this crowd scene, it reminded me a little bit of a tour that I gave this morning to the class of 1960. And I was in one of the science classrooms, and I started to explain what an active board was. And I could see the confusion on the faces of some of these members from the class of 1960. So I said, do any of you remember erasers and chalk? And everyone raised their hand. I said, that's an active board. So can I see the hands of you who still remember chalkboards and erasers? Okay. I feel real comfortable. Okay, now it's time to unveil the Kirkwood High School Alumni Hall of Fame plaques. Let me read the members, so just one more time. Courtney Shands, Marion Brooks, Myrtle Agnew, Earl Walker, Myrtle Agnew Walker, Earl Walker, John Briggs, John Yardley, Bob Fredericks, Scott Bakula, John McDaniel, John Cordy, Dave Sanborn, Tom Kenyon, Herb Jones, Theodore Olmsted, Harold Whitfield, David Pratt, Roger Riney, Gary Schmidt, Jim Talent, Mike Gibbons, Doug Landis, Maria Kenyova, and Jennifer Quinn Williams. Welcome once again, everyone, to our Kirkwood High School inaugural Hall of Fame ceremony. My name is Jim Felton. I was the athletic director here for 14 years. I retired, and then I unretired. I became the director of development. I don't know if that was a good move or not, but at least I still have a job. Tonight we will induct 23 Kirkwood High School alumni into the Kirkwood Alumni Hall of Fame and honor 2 others with the Pioneer Award. The path leading to this evening took the selection committee on a long and arduous journey, and I can confirm that because I was on that journey. Work began in 2009 with the committee setting the agenda and guidelines for the selection process, eventually soliciting and receiving 63 outstanding nominations. With so many worthy nominations to consider, the committee had a difficult task selecting the honorees we are recognizing tonight. Our group this evening is a distinguished one. Members of our inaugural class include some of Kirkwood's best and brightest. Inaugural class members run the gamut from artists, actors, singers, musicians and songwriters, to filmmakers, teachers, and attorneys. We honor members of our military, public servants, civic leaders, community volunteers, as well as doctors, aeronautical engineers, business leaders, and entrepreneurs. Members of the inaugural class span the decades of the 20th century, beginning with Courtney Shands from the class of 1923, through Jennifer Williams and Maria Canova from the class of 1984. Think about the events that occurred during that time. The Great Depression began, the country fought through World War II and the Korean and Vietnam conflicts. The 1954 Brown v. Board of Education Supreme Court decision ended segregation in public schools. Jonas Salk developed a vaccine to eliminate polio. Automobile and air travel made the world more accessible. Television consumed our evenings. Rock and roll and the Beatles took the country by storm. We landed men on the moon. In 1961, the Berlin Wall went up, and then it came down in 1989. And the Cardinals defeated the Milwaukee Brewers to win the 1982 World Series. I had to get in there. I was an athletics director, and I love my Cardinals. Of the many events that took place during that time, the Brown v. Board of Education decision had a significant impact on the Kirkwood High School as well as our country. Until 1954, public schools by law were segregated by race. In the Kirkwood School District, African American students attended the Booker T. Washington School or the John Milton Turner Elementary School. African American students were required to attend high school outside the district boundaries until 1955, when Kirkwood High School opened its new campus on West Essex. That is especially noteworthy for us this evening, as two of our African American inductees, Marion Brooks, class of 1932, and John Briggs, 1939, although not officially Kirkwood High School graduates, will be inducted into the Kirkwood High School Alumni Hall of Fame here this evening. Although both lived and attended elementary school in Kirkwood, they graduated from Sumner High School. We're pleased also that Mrs. Brooks knew of her induction before she passed on August 16th of this year. We honor them posthumously, along with Courtney Shands, class of 1923, John Yardley, class of 1942, and Robert Frederick, class of 1958. Please join me in applauding these distinguished alumni of Kirkwood High School. There was one bit more of research that I did, and I really uncovered something I didn't want to find, and I know how passionately our principal at Kirkwood High School, Dave Holly, feels about the Turkey Day football games, and I knew he would not want me to tell you that between 1923 and 1984, we won 22, lost 32, and tied 5, so I'm not going to say that this evening. But now I am pleased to introduce, from the Kirkwood High School class of 1967, Kirkwood High School Principal, Dr. David Holly.
This is a wonderful evening, and I appreciate and thank everybody who is here. I have a few words, not many, about tonight and about our school. And I want to welcome and congratulate the members who are in our first class of the Kirkwood High School Hall of Fame. And a couple things I'd like you to know about. I think the most important thing I would like you to know about, and I said this for those people who went on the tour, I said my mom went to a high school, and when we were growing up, her high school wasn't a very good high school, and she kept saying when we would go by her school, this isn't the way the school was when I went there. When I went to school, it was really a great place. And I could tell, and the boys could tell, that that meant something to my mom. Wasn't the end of the world, but it kind of made her sad that her school wasn't what it was. And I want the 22 or 23 of you to know that the school that you attended and the community that you grew up in is just still the same awesome place that you remember. And what makes this a special place at Kirkwood High School and Kirkwood community is the partnership that we have. And the partnership starts, in my opinion, with our kids, because that's who we work with every day. And it includes our parents, it includes our staff, and what makes Kirkwood Kirkwood, because I've interviewed people here for the last 20 years for jobs, and one of the questions, why do you want to work here? And they say, I can tell from the outside that this is a special place. And I can tell you that our community makes it a special place. And what I have come to appreciate and what I love and what we try to pass on, because 4 of the kids that I taught at Kirkwood High School are now on our staff here, what we alums try to pass on is the pride in place and the traditions of our school and the love that we have for this place. And those of you who went on the tour, or those of you who didn't make it any farther than the Walker Commons, saw that we have this great school because of the community support. And if you came in through the north, you saw the Walker Science Building, and you walked through the Walker Science Building. And yes, the community voted on that in 2005 and built us that great building. But without the Walkers and without other families, this community raised $1.3 million beyond the bond issue so that our kids could have the best facilities possible. Because of our alums, I don't know how many of you have seen our gym, who have seen our fitness center, who stood actually in the Walker Commons, and on Friday night, we unveil a football game on a turf stadium that is funded, it's to the tune of up right now $700,000 by alums and members of our community. So I want you alums who are back and the people who live in the community to know that we are very clear about the partnership that we have and what makes Kirkwood High School such a special place. And we also know, okay, so if we build this building, then what? Well, we build this building and we have these great facilities, and what goes on inside of here and what you don't see is what makes Kirkwood High School the place that it is. And you've already seen Emily Graham, and Emily Graham was one of the 62 kids who went to Carnegie Hall as our part of our orchestra. And you didn't see our 85 kids who went to Tantera last year as one of the outstanding bands in the state. And Mr. Hall, my civics teacher, H.L. Hall, began a journalism program which continued through one of his teachers, Katie Myers, who leads to Michigan. And we now have a journalism program which is renowned in the country as one of the best journalism programs in the country. And when we look at a country and we read what you read and hear what you hear about the importance of education and the importance of a high school education as a minimal standard, and we know that in America, sometimes there are schools where 40 and 50 and 60% of the kids graduate. And our graduation rate here for the last 3 years, and I know this is a low standard. I want you to understand that we know that. But we are committed to getting every child through this school and being successful so that they are prepared for what's next. And a graduation rate that's ranged from 95% to 98% in the last 3 years of our school. And of those kids, 85 to 90% each year have gone on to college. And that is, and I want to say something else. I was hired here in 1980 by Franklin McCauley. And I want you to know that when the No Child Left Behind policy was passed in the Bush administration, you all grew up here. And I went here when Mr. Ducek was the principal. And I worked here and I was hired by Franklin McCauley. And it was very clear to me and very clear to all of us who were hired by him that no child was going to be left behind at Kirkwood High School 20 years before the government said no child is going to be left behind. And we take that seriously here. I want you to know that I don't talk a lot here about test scores because we're about kids. We're about loving kids, and we're about respecting kids. But when the test scores came back this year, and we see that Kirkwood High School has the #1 math scores in the state of Missouri for any school over 200, we celebrated. And our English scores were #2 in the state, and that's not who we are, but that reflects the great work that is done by our staff and the great work that's done by our kids. I want to talk to you just a little bit about our kids, because if you walk through our school, you see that in our school, you know what, I'm going to introduce some kids. I don't want them to be anonymous to you when they come out and hand the plaques to the inductees. I want to introduce first Justin Hilton. Come on out, Justin Hilton. Katie Landrum is next. Come on out, we'll stand behind you, Justin. Demi Lewis. Miles Artis. And Mary Kleiss. These are 5 kids who represent our school. If you walk around Kirkwood High School, you see in Senior Hall all the pictures that you took, Mr. McCauley, wherever you are. And a great tradition where we put the pictures of the senior classes in the Senior Hall. We're able to go back now about 26 or 27 years. And at the other end of the Senior Hall, we have the top 3% of the kids in the graduating senior classes. We have the valedictorians, we have the salutatorians. If you walk out here in the Commons and look to your left, you'll see all-state music kids. If you went in the gymnasium, you saw all-state athletes pictured, as well as our Athletic Hall of Fame. We don't talk a lot about that here. But what we do and what we talk about at this school is, these are our exemplars. We put these kids up there as, these are the kids to whom we want you to aspire. These are kids who have done great things. And what I want to say to those of you in the Hall of Fame is, guess what? Now, you are our exemplars. You are the kids, you are the people that we will look to teach our kids about, here's what we value at Kirkwood High School. We value, and you're going to hear about those values as people cross the stage tonight. And these 5 people will tell you, we really don't talk a lot about values, although we do. But what we do is try to live values, and we try to model values, and we try to be the kind of adults that our kids will look to and say, you know what, this is a pretty cool place, and I want to be one of those people. Hall of Fame inductees, I thank you for being who you are. I thank you for what you've become. I thank you for what you will become, the exemplars for our kids. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I want you to give my favorite people, except for Miles Artis. No, I love Miles Artis. Miles Artis is one of our basketball stars, and as a former basketball coach, I have to love him, don't I? Absolutely. Okay, thank you all. It is now my pleasure to introduce our Mistress of Ceremonies. If you live in St. Louis, you have watched her for 25 years on KSDK News Channel 5. She's been a Kirkwood resident for 20 years. She is an Emmy Award-winning journalist who has been recognized nationally for her coverage of the tsunami, the Oklahoma City bombing, the Columbine shootings, just to name a few. She has been honored by countless organizations, including the Red Cross, the Missouri Broadcasters Association, the Humane Society, and the YWCA Leadership Council. Deanne Lane is now the face of Centene Corporation, a health organization based in Clayton, serving in media and corporate communications. Most importantly, she's the mother of one of our star juniors, Griffin Goodrich. I want to welcome Deanne Lane to Kirkwood High School. Please welcome her.
He took for having me. It is quite an honor to be part of this wonderful evening and an honor to have the Planning Committee think of me. Please join me in recognizing the Planning Committee for all the hard work that went into tonight. As I look out at all of you, I am in awe. I'm in awe because I know how much you have dedicated. Your time, your energy, your resources, your money to help enhance this beautiful campus, which only keeps getting better. Don't forget to vote. Getting better because of your tireless efforts. Further, I know how much you've devoted to enhance and enrich the lives of our children, including my son. And I'm humbled by tonight's inductees, their family, friends, and loved ones, because, as you mentioned, Dr. Howley, they helped lay the groundwork for this remarkable tradition we call Kirkwood. I'm often asked, I worked downtown for so many years and now in Clayton, why do you work or live in Kirkwood? Why Kirkwood? You can live near downtown, you can live anywhere. You also touched on this a bit. I do have one answer, I'll refrain from that answer tonight, but usually I just kind of pause and scratch my head and say, you have got to be kidding me. Why would I live in Kirkwood? Could it be the outstanding school system, top-notch teaching and coaching staff, diversity, family values? Or perhaps there is a tragic incident that makes national headlines. Kirkwoodians are there for each other. That's right. Stranger helping stranger, neighbor helping neighbor. Or on, if I can, a more personal note, during one's own heartache, you can fall back on that small town feeling we all like to talk about. We're blessed to have in Kirkwood, and then you know that you're not alone. So yes, I am proud to live in Kirkwood, and I'm proud to be a pioneer. Now to our inductees, if you may. As we mentioned earlier, the Pioneer Award was established to honor individuals who may not have graduated from Kirkwood High School, but who have made significant contributions to the Kirkwood School District. Homer Hall, known to all as H.L. Hall, journalism teacher, advisor, Kirkwood Call student, newspaper and Pioneer Yearbook 1973 to 1999, author of the high school journalism textbook, Kirkwood Teacher of the Year 1978-79, National Scholastic Journalism Hall of Fame 1992. Please welcome H.L. Hall.
I just want to say that this honor tonight is really not mine. It's really belongs to the fantastic students I had in my 34 years of teaching in this district. It also belongs to the supportive parents of those students. Certainly belongs to supportive administration, especially. I only worked under three, Bill Bowden, Donald Duchek, and Franklin McCauley. And all three, especially Franklin McCauley though, strong believers in responsible student freedom of expression. And that's one reason why the publications at Kirkwood High School became fairly well known across the country. Could not have done it without them. But most of all, I could not have done it without my wife. It takes a supportive wife, especially when my hours at the school were on a regular basis every day, 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And as some of you parents out there will know, some nights I kept them 24 hours. We were here. As one student said to me tonight, I was mean for keeping them that long. But I reminded her, it really wasn't me that kept them that long. They hadn't finished their job yet. So they kept themselves here that long. I really am honored to be on the stage with Dory Pahosky tonight and all the inductees in the Hall of Fame. Some of those inductees I had, like Jennifer Quinn, who donated $10,000 to the journalism program when I was here, which meant a lot to our program at that time, so I appreciate that tremendously. Scott Backett I never had in class, but Linda Backett I did. But I remember Scott so well in the lead role of Joseph and Mason Technicolor Dreamcoat down at the Presbyterian Church. What a super job he did. And of course, Marion Brooks, who was a co-partner of mine in teaching here at Kirkwood High School. And I'm so sorry that she's not here to be with us tonight, but one of my treasured moments at this school was she was named Missouri Teacher of the year before I was. And when the announcement was made in September of the year that I received it, she came running in my room. I was in a little portable building out on the edge of the campus here, and she was in the east building, and she came running in my room right after the announcement. I was teaching a beginning class. This is the beginning of the school year. My students did not know me well. They certainly did not know her. She came running in my room and threw her arms around me and says, "Oh, we're married now." And, my students really believed it. They thought we had just gotten married. I'll never forget that moment. It was a special moment to me, and I really am sorry that she's not here tonight. Dave didn't mention that he was in my first class that I had here at Kirkwood School District. I started teaching here in the school year 63-64. He was a 9th grader at North Kirkwood Junior High School. Almost did not start teaching here. I spent 2 years in the service over at Scott Air Force Base and had been hired at Shawnee Mission School District in Kansas to teach. That's where my wife is from. And the day before I got out of the service, I received a phone call and was told that I was no longer employed with Shawnee Mission because I lied on their application form. I don't think I lied on their application form, but they had a question on there: do you have any relatives to teach in the district? And after the word relative, they had father, mother, sister, brother. I didn't have any of those 4 relatives teaching in the school district, but I did have a father-in-law there. And we'd applied for a home loan, and the loan papers went through the school district, and my father-in-law was listed as a person that they could vouch for me, and they called me on the phone and said I lied on the application, they were not going to honor my employment. I had applied here in Kirkwood and not come over for an interview because I'd been hired by Shawnee Mission, the school district I wanted to go to, and I called immediately because Bob Moon was a civilian education employee at the Scott Air Force Base, and his wife, Mary Moon, was a music teacher here, that some of you may know, in the elementary schools. And so I called immediately. They still had an opening in social studies, and so I came over for an interview. And my wife had taught at Collinsville School District that year when I was in Scott Air Force Base, and I also applied there. So I called them for an interview that afternoon. I came here in the morning. I really loved the interview with Dr. Curl and Bill Bowden. I spent a couple hours here, and Bill Bowden said he'd be in contact. And I said, I have an interview this afternoon. I hate to be pushy, but I have to leave tomorrow to finish my master's degree at the University of Kansas, and I need to know today. And so he picked up the phone and called Dr. Curl, and I was hired. So that's how I wound up in Kirkwood, and I'm sure Dave Holly regrets that ever since, with my first year here. But I did not lie on my application, I don't think. But I was a fraud here the entire time. When I retired here in 1999, my wife and I moved to Tennessee to be close to grandkids and our 2 daughters and families. And I thought I would teach down there. But I sent in my credentials to the education department, and they said I had to send them on to a university, so they suggested Tennessee State University, closest to Nashville, to see if I was qualified to teach in Tennessee. Journalism is not a certifiable area down there, but both my degrees happen to be in history. And so I thought I could teach history and have a minor in English, and I taught English and I also taught history here as well as citizenship, sociology. But I get this letter back from Tennessee State University that says that I am not qualified to teach in Tennessee. I need 35 hours to teach history, and I need 33 additional hours to teach English. Well, I did not want to go back to school and take that number of hours, and so I did not become a full-time teacher in Tennessee, but did do some substitute teaching that first year. And one of the principals I worked with did tell me that she was on the certification commission, and she thought if I just took a test in my subject matter area, I could teach. Then I asked her, I said, I'm still traveling a lot and teaching about 15, 20 days during the school year around the country. And Kirkwood was so good to let me do that. And I said, but the school district here let me do that. And she immediately said no. So I did not ever go back to teaching full-time in Tennessee. But I can't tell you how thrilled I did wind up teaching here. I actually left the district for 2 years. At the end of that 2-year stint, my wife and I sat down one night and made a list of the positive things in the 3 school districts that I taught in. And when I did go back to Shawnee Mission School District, because the very next year they changed their policy and got rid of that little statement, and so I was hired there. But at any rate, after 2 years, my wife and I made a list, and Kirkwood went out. I could not tell you why Kirkwood went out, but it did. I was teaching at North. Leanne, my wife, was teaching at Nifer, We contacted both our former principals. They said they would have us back, so we ended up back in Kirkwood. And the rest is history, 26 years, 3 more years at the junior high, 26 years up here. But I can't tell you how pleased I have been to be here, and I know I'm taking more than my 2 minutes. Dory said I could. It's all her fault. But I'm going to end it here. And I just want to make one final comment. There was a documentary that came out yesterday called Waiting for Superman. I don't know whether you've heard about it or not, but there are several school districts around this country that are actually waiting for Superman. You don't have to wait here in Kirkwood. The community support, the fantastic teachers, the fantastic administration, you have the Superman and Superwomen here already, and you should be proud of it. Thank you.
Dory Engelhardt Proholski, class of 1951, a truly dedicated volunteer. Business leader and volunteer, Kirkwood Citizen of the Year, 1988. Missouri Individual Volunteer Award, 1989. Key volunteer, multiple charitable organizations. Please congratulate Dory.
I'm deeply honored to be a first-year recipient of the Pioneer Award. I would not be receiving this honor with the support, the volunteering, and dedication of many of you in the audience tonight. A big thank you to my sons Mike, Tim, Tom, and Scott, traveling back home with their families to share in my receiving this honor. I love you, family. My son Tom asked me once, "Mom, why do you always have to make a big production out of everything?" I said, because it's much more fun that way. You all have heard that acorns don't fall too far from the tree. Ask my sons Tom and Scott tonight about their marriage proposals to Jennifer and Terry, and happily you will find that it is true. I wish my husband Tom could be with us tonight. He enjoyed being a participant in every event. He would get a little upset with me when the dinner hour would start around 10 or 11 o'clock too many nights in a row, but he couldn't be perfect. There are 3 special people I want to recognize for their contribution to the projects and working with me through the years. Karen Dutsky and I started working together while serving on the Kaiser PTO board. I can't remember a single project without her. She's a great problem solver and dedicated worker. She spent almost every day for 4 months in the science building basement, sorting and pricing thousands of items for Amy's gigantic garage sale. We had 95 people working the day of the sale, students, teachers, parents, and staff. You could even find Superintendent Tom Keating in linens and books. We raised a little over $10,000 for the new marching band uniforms. Then there is Sandy Hughes, former Mayor Bob Ryan's daughter, ultra creative and indispensable, plus so much fun to work with. We started at Kaiser also, where she played a ghostly torch singer in one of our haunted houses. She called me one day years later and said, "Our kids at church had a successful fundraiser. I want to tell you about it. Maybe someday you can use it to help someone else." And that leads me to Franklin McCauley. My first endeavor with Franklin was as a parent at Kaiser. He played a dead vampire in our haunted house. Our relationship progressed to the point at the high school that when I would say, "Franklin, I would like to talk with you," his response was no, and start to walk away, knowing it meant more work for him. Actually, he never turned me down and always came through big time, particularly for the Judavine Center for Autistic Children. I asked him if he would help me raise money for their $1 million goal for a new school building. After spending a morning visiting with their kids and teachers, he said absolutely that he would help me. He sent letters to principals in the metro area introducing me. He sent letters to principals of high schools and middle schools in the metro area introducing me and the concept of kids across the area joining together doing a free car wash. Kids Helping Kids was a reality at 20 schools in the metro area. Not only kids, but teachers, staff, parents, PTO, barbecues, bands playing, washing cars on a bright sunny day. Sandy was my co-chairman, guiding me along the way. KHS, Kirkwood High School, was the lead school, washing 600 cars that day. The average pledge students got when canvassing their neighborhoods was 5 cents a car. One pledge of 5 cents for the Kirkwood High School car wash equaled $30. To show you the magnitude of the students' efforts, they raised a little over $100,000. It all started with Sandy Hughes and Franklin McCauley. Beautiful memories and great fun. But there is another reason I spent so much time volunteering for the Kirkwood schools. I had a long-time debt to repay to the Kirkwood School District. I stuttered severely when I was 4 years old. When I was in the 3rd grade, I remember the teacher asking me to stand at my desk and read aloud to the class. I was embarrassed to speak and so upset, I threw up all over the students sitting in front of me. I still feel badly about that. The district had a speech therapy class. Part of our therapy was facial and tongue exercises. These were the only times I could stick out my tongue at someone and not be reprimanded. We also had to stand up in front of our group of 6 and give little speeches, enunciating each word properly and not using any andas. I want to say thank you to the district for giving me the ability to talk without stuttering and the confidence to stand before you, accepting this wonderful Pioneer Award and delivering my little speech and not having to worry about throwing up.
And now the Kirkwood High School Alumni Hall of Fame. We first recognize a couple of those no longer with us. Courtney Shan Sr., class of 1923. Talk about a story. Graduate, United States Naval Academy, 1927. World War II pilot and aircraft carrier commander, Korean War. Navy Cross and Purple Heart. Represented by his granddaughter, Elizabeth Shands, a parent of twins, who, by the way, attend Kirkwood schools. Elizabeth?
I do not have a speech, but I would like to thank you all very much on behalf of my family.
And also, we remember Marion Brooks, class of 1932. Kirkwood School District teacher, 1947 to 1984. Kirkwood School District Teacher of the Year, 1977-78. Missouri Teacher of the Year, 77-78. National Honor Roll Teacher of the Year, 77-78. Represented by her daughter, Renee H., who's in the audience this evening. Renee, thanks for joining us tonight. Now it is my honor to represent our 2 inductees now coming up. They certainly need no introduction. Myrtle Agnew and Earl Walker met in biology class at the original Kirkwood High School located on South Kirkwood Road. Dedicated philanthropists, Mr. and Mrs. Walker focus especially on initiatives for children and students. Myrtle Agnew Walker, class of 1938, co-founder, Car Lane Manufacturing Company, Myrtle Agnew Walker Arts Grants, Kirkwood High School, the Walker Science Center, the Walker Commons, and Myrtle's Turtles, Kirkwood High School. And Earl Walker, class of 1939, business leader, entrepreneur, and philanthropist, co-founder, Car Lane Manufacturing Company. Walker Scottish Rite Clinic for Childhood Language Disorders of St. Louis. Walker Science Center, Kirkwood High School, Walker Commons. Please welcome the Walkers.
They asked me if I want to speak. I really don't want to, but I will. Myrtle and I met in high school in biology class, and we had a good marriage life for 67 years. We have 4 children, and they've all grown up to be good kids. We have 7 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren. And we met, like I said, in biology class, and she has been of great help in running our business, and we have one of the largest tooling component businesses in the world today. Mainly because of our education, we got to Kirkwood High School, and we're very thankful for all the people who have helped us over the time. Thank you for coming this evening.
As we said earlier, we're going to remember some of those no longer with us. Major John Briggs, class of 1939. Another remarkable story. Tuskegee Airman, Distinguished Flying Cross, Air Medal with 7 oak leaf clusters, represented tonight by his brother, Adolphus Briggs.
First, I'd like to thank Wallace Board for submitting my brother's name to this affair. But if anybody else had anything to do with it, I'd like to thank them too. Now, as far as my brother, I'm sorry he's not here to receive it, but I am grateful that he lived long enough to go to D.C. to receive his Congressional Medal of Honor. And when you're young, you don't realize the significance of some things. Now, when he got his commission, and everybody was excited, I was a youngster. I didn't understand what it was all about. He had 2 little gold bars on his thing. Well, I had a brother-in-law that was a master sergeant. I thought that was a big deal. Until he called me to the side and explained to me, he said, your brother-in-law has to call me sir now. I said, okay. So like I said before, I appreciate it. I'm sorry he's not here, and I wish my sister was here to see this too. But life still goes on. And this is an honor that I'll pass on to my kids. Thank you.
John Yardley, class of 1942, aeronautical engineer, launch operations manager, Mercury and Gemini missions, associate administrator, Space Shuttle Program, NASA, senior corporate VP, McDonnell Douglas Corporation. Represented tonight by his daughter, Susan Yardley Benino.
So, thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about my dad. I'm very proud of him. My whole family is. My father graduated early from Kirkwood High. He was only 16 years old. And at that age, he had big dreams. He dreamed about building rockets and spaceships. Not that that was really going on at that time, but that was what he wanted to do. He went on to WashU, and then he got a full scholarship to Iowa State, where he graduated, and he got his degree in mechanical engineering in 2.5 years. And after the Navy, 2 years in the Navy, he returned to St. Louis to, set up house with my mom, and he got a job at McDonnell Aircraft Company, little bitty airplane company. But he hadn't forgotten his dream, and so he went back to WashU, and he got his master's in applied engineering. And not a lot of people in 1949 were really interested in space science, but that's what his thesis was about. So now, go to 1950, he gets the master's degree. 1961, President Kennedy says, we're going to go to the moon in the next decade. And McDonnell Douglas realized, we want to be a part of that. And we have this bright young engineer who studied some space science. So my father was put in charge of putting together a team, doing some drawings and designs to submit to NASA. And when NASA got them, they were very similar to what they had on the drawing board, and they got the job. So here's where the dream comes true, and he actually got to do what he wanted to do. He was 37 years old, and I'll never forget him telling me this story. He said, I was flying by the seat of my pants, because no one had ever done this before. He worked very closely with the astronauts. specifically John Glenn. My dad's contribution was the multiple safety systems and the redundancy in that. He was project manager for Mercury. He was the general manager for Gemini. He consulted a little on Apollo. I was actually born in Cocoa Beach, Florida. We returned to St. Louis, and he worked on missile systems, interballistic missiles. In 1974, NASA asked him if he would head up the space shuttle program. He was the highest level, full-time official in charge of the shuttle program. His job was to oversee all the different contractors who were working on it, as well as go up to Capitol Hill and ask for money in the late 70s when no one wanted to give it to him. And we watched him kind of go a little gray at that point. In 1989, he retired from McDonnell Douglas as the senior vice president of the corporation. And I just think it's remarkable that he wanted to build spaceships in 1938 or whenever they didn't even exist, and he got to do that. So it's really a story of timing, being in the right place in the right time. Thank you for letting me share my story about my dad.
Dr. Robert Frederick, class of 1958. Athletic Director, University of Kansas, 1987-2001. Chairman of multiple NCAA committees, community and civics leader, recipient of numerous honors and awards. Represented by his childhood friend and classmate, Bob Chamberlain, Kirkwood High School class of 1958.
Good evening. I'm here representing the Frederick family. Also in the audience tonight is his wife Margie and his sister Susan Treppel, also Kirkwood High School graduate. It's an honor for me to represent the family, which is composed of not only Margie and Susan, but their 4 boys, Brian, who is in Washington, D.C., Brad, who's in Nashville, Mark, who's in Denver, and Chris, recently moving to Los Angeles. His program you have tonight shows a lot of the things that Bob accomplished in his life. And one other measure of the man, I think, is the memorial service that was given for him shortly after his untimely death last June. There were some 1,500 people attending the memorial in Lawrence. And it was a measure of his fullness, his grace, his spirit, and especially, I think, his legacy. Many people benefited from their relationships with Bob, and both as a teacher, as a fellow administrator, and for many of us, just as a friend. So I want to thank the committee for selecting Bob. I know if he were here tonight, he would be both humble and honored to be a recipient for this initial award. Thank you very much.
We'll continue with the program tonight in the Hall of Fame. Scott Bakula, class of 1973. Scott is a well-known actor of stage and screen. Golden Globe Award Best Actor TV Series, Quantum Leap, 1991. Viewers for Quality Television Award, 5-time winner, Best Actor Drama Series. Scott Bakula. John McDaniel, class of 1979, musician, conductor, and musical director. Los Angeles Drama Critic Award in 1992, Tony Award 1999, Grammy Award 1999, Emmy Award 2001 and 2002. To accept on his behalf, his parents James and Jane McDaniel.
Good evening. My name is Jim McDaniel, and this is my wife Jane. We're John's parents and are especially proud this evening to accept this Crystal K on John's behalf as he is inducted into the Kirkwood High School Hall of Fame.
Unfortunately, John is unable to be here this evening due to a previous long-standing musical commitment. Tonight he is in Wisconsin performing in concert with his friend, 6-time Emmy and Tony Award winner Tyne Daly. But he is certainly here in spirit.
John asked us to read the following from him. Good evening, Kirkwood. I truly wish I could be here with you tonight. My days here at Kirkwood High feel recent and fresh, even though I studied here more than 30 years ago. The lessons I learned at KHS thoroughly prepared me for the big world out there, and I am so very grateful for all of them. I'd like especially to acknowledge 3 special faculty members who impacted me back when I was a student here. First, Mr. John Warren Owen, who was then the masterful choral director here at KHS. His sense of discipline and keen musicianship has stayed with me and influenced my work to this day.
John continues, I'd also like to recognize Mrs. Claudine Veneri, who taught me how to really read a book. As a side note, Mrs. Veneri had been a rockette in Radio City, which made her my first celebrity. And finally, Mr. Carl Rogers, who was the faculty advisor to the Kirkwood Players. He believed in us kids, who at that time directed, choreographed, and starred in our school productions. I'm especially proud to give a shout out to my niece, Mary Beth Black, a current freshman at Kirkwood High School, who incidentally is the only freshman to be accepted into chamber choir this year. I'd also like to take a moment to encourage all of the current students to follow their dreams. Anything is possible if you have courage and a little faith in yourself. The sky's the limit.
Thanks to one and all for this amazing honor, and have a wonderful evening.
John Cordy, class of 1954. Mr. Cordy received both an Emmy Award and a Directors Guild Award for the 1974 movie, The Autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. Animator, filmmaker, Academy Award 1977, Emmy Award 1974 and 79, Directors Guild Award 1978. And what a better way to recognize him, he sent a DVD tonight, so let's take a look.
My name is John Cordy. I'm sorry I can't be with you tonight, but things come up in my life very unpredictably, and this time I just couldn't make it. I also, before I say much else, I want to add that I think several of the people in my class deserve this just as much as I do. 2 that I will mention are Stuart Jordan and Sue Wiggins. Stuart is now a retired from the Goddard Space Center, where he was a senior scientist and did things that you and I will never be able to figure out, but they were very important. Sue Wiggins, as you may know, taught at Kirkwood High School for a long time, and that's a devotion that I think needs a special award all of its own. So who is John Cordy? I graduated in 1954, 56 years ago, hard to believe. And in preparing for this little talk, one of the significant revelations I had was that all of the major decisions in my life were actually made at Kirkwood High School, not at college or later. And I owe that primarily to 4 teachers. The first was Dorothy Voorhees, our art teacher. In the 11th grade, she showed us the films of Norman McLaren, a Canadian genius who made all kinds of animated films, sometimes without even using a camera. Look him up. Anyway, I saw Norman's films and I thought, that's it. That's what I want to do with my life. And so that started me on this path. The second teacher who had a big influence on me was Dewey Scheichel's American History in the 11th grade. And she was a great lady, and she and I and a couple of other weirdos were the only people for Adlai Stevenson when he ran against General Dwight Eisenhower. But I got a sense of the American political landscape from her. Third teacher was Steiny, Mrs. Steinkamp, who mainly was a terrific role model. She proved every day that you could be smart and funny at the same time. I sat behind a guy named Clark Ashburn, And we were studying one day, and out of the silence, Steiny's voice came very sweetly, saying, "Ashburn, dear, I do wish you wouldn't chew gum in class. It makes you look absolutely bovine." I still remember the phrase from those years. The fourth teacher, who had a big influence on me, was Mary Williams, the 12th grade English teacher. She encouraged me and others to go into creative writing, and we entered some contests and won prizes, and it started my whole life as a writer. So, to cut to the chase, I have since made 35 full-length films, dozens of animated and short documentaries. I worked with over 1,000 actors, some of them very good, some of them pretty ordinary. Anyway, I think I'm the only director of film to win awards in all three areas: drama, documentaries, and animation. Very few people flit around that much, but I did. I stayed with TV movies longer than I should have, according to my agents and other people, mainly because they reached so many people. The first night that Miss Jane Pittman, the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, was shown, it reached 50 million people, which is astounding. In fact, the more amazing statistic I came up with, because somebody said, "Well, how many people do you think you've reached with your films?" And I added up some numbers I had, Nielsen ratings and other estimates, and I came up with the amazing figure of 1 billion viewer hours all over the world. I had no idea that it was that much, but it was very sobering. My public resume is on Internet Movie Database, IMDb. There are some DVDs available on Amazon, and I've just donated my last film, Miracle in a Box, to the Kirkwood Public Library. It's a documentary on restoring classic Steinway and other grand pianos, but it's really about people and workplace and satisfaction in what you do and so forth. So mentioning satisfaction, I guess the question is, did that work for me? Has this been worthwhile? I'm certainly not rich, but I didn't have that on my agenda anyway. I started to make films because I wanted to bring peace and social justice to the world, and you only have to read the morning papers to see how fantastically successful I was in that. The great thing for me right now is digital video. It has simplified the filmmaking process, made it very inexpensive, and I started out as a one-man band. I'm ending up as a one-man band and having a lot of fun with it. I'm also writing screenplays, articles for magazines, and some poetry. So I will leave you with my most recent poem, which is incredibly short and relates to my life as well as other things. It's called "Please Don't Tell the Butterflies." Please don't tell the butterflies that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Thanks again. Bye.
David Sanborn, the class of 1963. Musician, six-time Grammy Award winner, 81, 85, 86, 87, 88, 1999. David had planned on being here tonight. He had a family emergency. He sends his regrets, but he too sent a DVD. Let's listen.
Hi, I'm David Sanborn, and I'm very flattered and honored to be one of the first recipients of the Kirkwood High School Alumni Hall of Fame Award. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I have a lot of fond memories growing up in Kirkwood, going to Kirkwood High School. I graduated in 1963, 62, 63, let's say 63. I remember my high school band director, Burton Isaac, who was a tireless and very patient band director and educator. I remember just hanging out at places like Spencer's Grill and listening to the jukebox and early rock and roll records. It was a great time to grow up and a great town to grow up in, because it was close enough to the big city of St. Louis, yet it felt like it had a very small town, very protected, kind of safe feel to it, and it was just felt great growing up in Kirkwood. I remember playing with Mel Bay's son, Bill Bay. We had a a dance band. We played dances at the high school, Kirkwood High School, and other places around St. Louis. And it just, I mean, in a lot of respects, it was a great time and a great place to grow up in. And I have fond memories of Kirkwood and Kirkwood High School. And I'm just so flattered and honored to be given an award like this, and I'm very grateful. Thanks.
Dr. Tom Kenyon, class of 1973, and I was reminded today, also a star diver, physician and humanitarian, principal deputy global AIDS coordinator, chief medical officer for President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief Africa. And to accept the award on his behalf is his wife, Lori Boat Kenyon, by the way, class of 1974. Business and civic leader, president and co-owner, Messenger Printing and Publishing Company, mayor of Kirkwood, 1984 to 1992, obviously board president and member of numerous civic organizations. Herb?
Good evening. I'm truly humbled to be included in the inaugural class of the KHS Hall of Fame. And I've always been proud to be able to say that I'm a Kirkwood graduate. And as you know, if you live in St. Louis, that's the first thing people ask you upon meeting you. And I feel that the education that I received at KHS prepared me well for life. Except for college years, I've lived in Kirkwood my entire life. That is over 75 years. In each year, I have seen the city and the schools get better and better. Not many cities and school districts can make that claim, and it does not happen by accident. As I look out into the audience tonight, I see the faces of many school and community leaders that have made a long-term commitment to move the city and schools forward to the level that it is today. Many of you are Kirkwood graduates, and many others have been attracted to Kirkwood from neighboring communities and have joined the effort to build a better Kirkwood. I would like to accept this honor tonight on behalf of those many committed leaders. Throughout the years, it has been exciting to see our Kirkwood graduates as they go off to college carry the enthusiasm and love for their hometown and vow to return to Kirkwood when they start their own families, so their children can also live that Kirkwood experience. This unique phenomenon is widely recognized throughout the state of Missouri and the Midwest. My own involvement in the community could not have happened without the support of my wife, Mary, and my 3 children, and my brother and business partner for the past 55 years, Dave Jones, all of whom have played a significant leadership role in our community. I would like to ask all of the Jones family members that are here tonight to stand and be recognized. And I would also like to thank the many friends, my 1951 classmates, the Doves, the Whisk members that are here tonight to share in this celebration. For my family and the many friendships, I feel truly blessed. Thank you very much.
And before we move on, I'm reminded that we do have a DVD also tonight from Tom Kenyon, so let's enjoy that, please.
Good evening, Kirkwood, and greetings from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I have to keep this short due to email limitations. I'm very grateful and honored to be inducted into the Kirkwood High School Hall of Fame. I'm really grateful to Kirkwood High for a lot of things, my education, diving, but most of all for having met my wife, Sibo Boak, there in student council, and having taken typing together and lots of other things. So thank you all. Have a great evening. and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Rear Admiral Theodore Olmsted, class of 1953. He served the United States with honor and distinction in the United States Navy for 30 years, rising to the rank of Admiral. Defense Distinguished Service Medal, among so many other medals, including the Navy Unit Medal. Please welcome Admiral Theodore Olmsted.
I am honored and humbled to have been chosen from the class of 1953 when there are so many other of my classmates that would be deserving of this reward. And I know, and I always will know, that Kirkwood High School was very important to me in my life. And I want to thank all the teachers for the education I received and the values which have stood me in just right rock island stead as I spent 30 years in the Navy serving my country. Thank you.
Harold Whitfield, class of 1956, business leader and attorney, municipal judge, City of Kirkwood. Legend of Law Award, Kirkwood City Council, American International Academy of Trial Lawyers. Harold Whitfield.
First, say good evening to everyone, and certainly thank the committee for such an awesome award. When you receive something like this, you certainly don't think you deserve it, but I want to thank the committee for recognizing me for what I've tried to attempt to do and to accomplish in my life. I think very importantly, I want to say a lot of things, and maybe I can use 3 to 4 minutes, but I first want to thank Cookie, Susan, and Cara, and my brother Ken, who some of you may know, who at one time was mayor of the city of Rock Hill, for giving me the support to do the things I've done since leaving Kirkwood and Kirkwood High School. Let me take a few minutes to put it this way. I represent something or somebody who grew up in Kirkwood, and when I thought about what I would say here today or tonight, it seems to me fitting to say that my being here tonight before you represents not only the 1 year that I spent at Kirkwood High School, but I represent truly a village and a city that impacted my life and put me on the right path to where I would be in a position to maybe someday someone look at my life and see that I had some accomplishments, went through some adversities, and maybe some younger person could benefit from my experiences. Let me be specific in this way. Many of you know that I came to Kirkwood High School in the class of 1955, 1956. That was the first class here at Kirkwood High School. And many times we refer to it as the Mud Bowl, because that class, the building was just finished, and we had no grass, and there was mud all around the campus. But those were truly good years for us. And I have to truly say that the integration of Kirkwood High School in 1956, 55, 56, I think went rather smoothly. Some of those classmates are here in the audience tonight. We were well received, and many of those students, black and white, were very accomplished from that 1956 class. And sometimes I look around and wonder why me and not some of them. The other interesting part about my history and background is, let me start with the 5th grade, Booker T. Washington, when an outstanding Tuskegee Airman came by our class and talked about shooting down other planes and dogfights. And we were simply gazed at him because we had no idea that an African-American pilot, and that African-American pilot was John Briggs, tall, very handsome, statuesque man who has impressed me until this day as being a Tuskegee Airman. The teacher in that class, ironically, was Marion Brooks. And so I extend, and I'm taking a little bit more time, I'm sure, across quite a spectrum, from Booker T. Washington, the training and nurturing of Marion Brooks, the impressions received from a John Briggs, to go to J. Milton Turner, both schools still within the Kirkwood school system, and such outstanding teachers as Llewellyn Smith, Mr. Robert Reed, and Ms. Winifred Brown, all had impacts on my life. And as you know, if you don't know, we then had to go to Douglas in Webster Groves for high school, or some students chose to go to Bashan or Sumner to high school. But then in 1954, we first had an initial orientation into the integration of schools after Brown versus Board of Education. And we'd had that orientation at Knifer High School because the new school, high school here, had not opened. So in September of 1955, we came to Kirkwood High School. And there again, you saw in the clip from one of the previous inductees, the name of Mary Williams. And I didn't know anything about Mary Williams, but a lot of students who did said, well, you don't want to take that English class. But it turned out that with her sternness, I became a fairly decent creative writer. And moving fast forward, in 1972, when I ran for the city of council of the city of Kirkwood, Mary Williams was one of my staunchest supporters. And we became friends and had been friends up until the time of her death. So much so that very recently I wrote a TV screenplay, which is now in for copyright, so we'll see where that goes. But that inspiration came from Mary Williams. As I end this, and I hope I'm at about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, if you ever want to run for politics in any place, there's one person and maybe two who have been partners, and I understand, for many years you need to talk to. And that's Joe Cole and Earl Walker. And those two persons were very impressive in the things that I was able to accomplish in 1972. I want to thank Cookie, my wife. I want to thank the committee and members of my family. My pastor who's here, Reverend Karen Anderson. And I want to do one other thing. Tomorrow, Sunday, we're having an Olive Chapel AME Church, Friends and Family Day. So all of you are welcome to come by that beautiful church on the corner of Harrison and Monroe, where all the lovely flowers are there, and just share some time with us, because we love to have visitors come and visit with us. And I certainly appreciate this award, and thank you very much.
David Pratt, class of 1962, business leader, entrepreneur, and philanthropist, president and founder, United Industries. Minority ownership, St. Louis Cardinals. Board of Directors, Sisters of Mercy Health System. And David C. Pratt Cancer Center, St. John's Mercy Medical Center. Please congratulate David Pratt.
First, let me tell you what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. First thing I'm going to do is give my secretary of 25 years a raise for sneaking that 10-year-old picture past the planning commission. And the second thing I'm not going to do, or the first thing I'm not going to do, is I'm not going to talk about the Cardinals. I graduated Kirkwood High School in 1962. I wasn't a great student. I wasn't a great athlete. I blame that on my parents and genetics. But I think if the administration in 1962 were still here today, there's some certainty that I would not be standing here talking to you. The time blurs the images of misdeeds, thank God. We were a class of about 560 students, and we were really a microcosm of American society at that time. We were about half male, half female. We had 20% minorities. We had wealthy families, we had middle-class families, we had lower middle-class families. We even had a fair number of what we would consider today poor families. But we went to school together, we played athletics together, we socialized together, we went to dances and proms and hung out at Parkmore. And we had very few issues as a class. There were some very bright kids in this class. There were some kids like me that were not so bright and in the middle somewhere. But we got along, and there were no federal mandates. There were no. The girls were smarter. I mean, we didn't have any gender problems. They were prettier. They were smarter. They were a whole lot more mature, and so they were running the show, and things haven't changed much. I doubt the educators back then really understood the life lessons outside the classroom that the Kirkwood High experience provided us. And I know today, when I get asked the inevitable question in St. Louis, where did you go to high school? I stand up and stick out my chest and I say, I'm a product of the public school system, and I'm proud of Kirkwood High School. Not only did they prepare me for college, but they prepared me in so many other ways with life lessons that have had a profound impact on the future that I had after Kirkwood. Thank you very much.
Roger Riney, class of 1963, business leader and entrepreneur, founder and CEO, Scott Trade online investment firm, Fortune's 100 Best Companies to Work For, and J.D. Power Award for Highest Customer Satisfaction. Roger?
Well, thank you. It's great to be here tonight. Kirkwood is a special place. I grew up on North Clay, just a little bit south of Essex, that place where there's a triangle in the middle of the road. And nobody knows whether it's one way or two ways. Loud arguments, and I used to stand in the front window at home and watch cars, and people scratch their head and curse at each other and so forth years ago. But went off to Tillman. Some of your best lessons aren't learned in the classroom. And Wilson Smith was the principal at Tillman back then. Some of you maybe remember it. A big guy, rather intimidating in a way, friendly face, but somewhat intimidating to me. And I learned my biggest lesson, I think, one day from him. My mother always picked me up from school. One day she was talking to Mrs. Thurman across the street. She got a little carried away. Time slipped by. I'm waiting for her, and I'm waiting. She didn't show up. Very unusual. I called her. Wilson heard me talk to her on the phone. I read her the riot act, so to speak. Rather cocky, I might add, I was. And as soon as I hung up that phone, he taught me a lesson. He read me down. And it was a wonderful experience because I still remember it. But from there, North Kirkwood, and of course Kirkwood High School, a wonderful place, wonderful school district. And we thank Dr. Hawley and all the administrators and teachers for the fantastic job that they still do here. And thank you for making a special place.
Gary Schmidt, 1965, attorney and judge, president, Missouri Association of Probate and Associate Circuit Judges, Distinguished American Jurist Award, 2002, Erwin A. Keller Award. Please welcome Gary Schmidt.
I promise you I will be short. Ginger Fletcher threatened me if I went much over 2 minutes, and my family promised to help her. I was a fortunate child indeed. I got to go to Kirkwood High School, and this is a very appropriate time to give thanks to the school boards, the administrators, teachers, staff, and now the members of the foundation, the workers for the foundation, for all they have done, past, present, and future. I got to be involved in a very fabulous class in 1965. We had 23 merit finalists and semifinalists, that's a large number, state champions galore, and amidst all that talent, some genuinely nice people, some people who would mentor you when you need mentoring, positive peer pressure. We've remained friends throughout the years. Many of us show up at reunions, hundreds to reunions. One of our shining stars in our class, our unofficial class historian, Leslie Canavan, is here with us tonight. But if I'm going to be grateful, I have to start being grateful with my parents.
Art and Minnie Schmidt. Art just celebrated his 90th birthday, and they are both with us here tonight. If we had a Hall of Fame for parents, I assure you they would be in the first class. I'm very proud of them. 40 years ago, I had the privilege of marrying one of the best things to ever come from Webster Groves. Chris has been an equal partner of everything we've managed to accomplish. Thank you, Chris. But what I really want to say here is give you a report on something I saw a few years ago. We got a tour of the high school, my Principal Holly of all things, and at the time he talked about some of the challenges that we're going to face Kirkwood High School in the future. I was stunned by the vision and foresight that the administration had put into what's going to happen in the future. And I thought, KHS, Kirkwood High School, is in the best of hands possible, and I believe that today. Ginger Fletcher, thank you for all the many courtesies. Thank you to the committee for the honor you've given all of us. And I remain proud to be, and always will be, a Kirkwood man.
Jim Talent, class of 1973, attorney and public servant, United States Senator 2003 to 2007, United States House of Representatives 1992 to 2000, Missouri House of Representatives 1984 to 1992. Jim, come on down.
This whole experience this evening has left me almost speechless, which is truly extraordinary. The memories have come flooding back, most especially of how this school is more than a school, it's a community. And all of that came back this evening. I'd like to say thank you to the committee. This is enormously gratifying to me. Thank you to Don Duchek and the teachers who did such a persistent and faithful job in trying to educate me all those years. And I want to recognize and dedicate this award this evening to my mother, who loved the Kirkwood school system and volunteered and worked and cared for the schools and for my brother and sister and me all the way through. I remember in elementary school, during Christmas time, she baked bread and cookies for the teachers, and she always asked them which they wanted, the bread or the cookies, in part because she loved the schools, and in part because she felt like maybe that way she could get me into class and my brother and sister in the class that she wanted them to go into. Thank you all again. This is a wonderful evening for me. Thank you.
Mike Gibbons, class of 1977, attorney and public servant, Missouri State Senator 2000, 2008, Majority Floor Leader 2003 to 2007, and President Pro Tem 2005, 2008. Missouri State Rep 1992, 2000, Kirkwood City Council 1986 to 1992. Mr. Gibbons.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity early this evening to go on the tour with Dave Holly. It really is an amazing canvas, and the changes from what it was when I was here to today, and even from when my daughter graduated, is really spectacular. And I appreciate it. And I appreciate your commitment and your dedication to the kids in this school. And as a show of respect, before tonight, I went out and got my hair cut exactly like you. I think it looked pretty sharp up here. It's very special to be recognized by your high school in your hometown and for doing what you love to do, which for me was trying to do what I could to make this corner of our world just a little bit better. This recognition was so unexpected, it's very surprising, it is very humbling. It's also very special because my roots in this community and this school run very deep. Several members of my family have graduated from Kirkwood High School, the first one in 1915. My dad, who's here, graduated the class in 1942. My wife is a graduate of Kirkwood High School. My sister Edie is a graduate, and so are both of our children, Danny and Meredith, 2001, 2007. Liz, I did not mention your graduation year, and I know you appreciate that. She's a lot younger than me. But this is a great place, and for I think I can speak on behalf of all of our family members who've attended and graduated from this great school, that it's a place where we got a really good, solid, great start. It's an important part of who we are. And with the cornerstones of faith and family and friends, has given each one of us opportunities that we never could have even imagined. In addition to the school and our teachers and classmates, I really want to thank my parents. They are both here, they're in their 80s and doing well, but I really appreciate the fact that they're here and appreciate the fact that they did such a wonderful job in raising my sister and me. My wife's here, Liz. My son Danny couldn't make it. He's at the age where he goes to weddings all the time. He's at his 20th wedding over the last 2 years, so he's not married yet, and we're hoping for that to happen. Meredith is here, class of 2007, and really has some very amazing friends, a few of whom are here as well that were really important to whatever I've been able to achieve. None of us are able to do these things on our own, and I just really wanted to briefly mention Teresa, Donna and Neil, Kat, who are people who worked with me over the years. And I also want to especially point out, and Harold Whitfield pointed out as well, Joe Cole. Joe is an amazing guy. He's 93 years young, and the only reason that I ever entered into the realm of public service was because of two things. The example of my parents and Joe Cole harassing me and stalking me and following me and encouraging me and telling me to run for city council in 1985 when I was fresh out of law school, living at home, and really didn't know what I was going to do with myself. But for some reason, he saw something in me, and he just would not let it go, and I appreciate that very much, Joe. I've tried to think about what it means to be part of an absolutely spectacular group of honorees. And as others have mentioned, a lot of people who aren't, being honored tonight, who probably deserve it, certainly more than me. But perhaps each one of us, and those who follow, in some small way might inspire a student to follow their dream, to go out there and look at that wall and see that someone from their school had a similar dream that they pursued to a reality. I hope that they go out there and find someone, and you're going to be very inspired by my classmate Doug Landis, who will be up here next, but to look at that and say, I know I can do it too. Thank you very much.
Doug Landis, class of 1977. Doug was a high school student when a wrestling accident in 1975 left him paralyzed from the neck down. On a bet from his brother, Mr. Landis began drawing with his mouth. Artist, speaker, International Mouth and Foot Painting Artists Association member with exhibits throughout the world, Brussels, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C. Please welcome Doug Landis.
How do you know I'm sitting right above the trap door? First of all, I'd really like to thank Bruce and all the council members who inducted me into the Hall of Fame. I am extremely honored and feeling wholly undeserved being among the great honorees that are honored here tonight. I would also like to thank my wife and family and friends who have been there for me. They're the people that made me who I am. And the people of Kirkwood, I know when I was first injured, a lot were trying to encourage me to go to special school district. And my very first goal was to get out of the hospital and graduate with my high school class, and I was able to do that. When I was here, when we first moved here, we'd only been here a year when I was injured. And when I was injured, a lot of people that never knew me, never met me, didn't know me from Adam. Kids at bake sales, and they created the Doug Landis Fund, which helped my family and made a great difference in our lives. And it became the Missouri Kids Organization to help other student athletes that have also suffered catastrophic injuries like myself. And that organization goes on today. So that's started from grassroots efforts right here in Kirkwood. That's what makes Kirkwood great. I wish to thank everybody very much. You guys have a great night.
Maria Kanyova, class of 1984. Maria was known as Mary Jane Posegate in high school. Today, she's an international opera singer and voice teacher, leading roles in major opera houses including Chicago, Houston, Dallas, Los Angeles, New York, Canada, San Francisco, and of course, right here in St. Louis. Accepting on her behalf tonight, her parents.
It's a deep privilege to accept this award on behalf of our daughter, Maria. She regrets that she's not able to be here this evening, but she wants us to convey her deep appreciation for this great and noble honor that she's received. She also wants to thank the group of people who made it possible for her to be part of this group and who were part of the selection process. We appreciate that very much. Maria enjoyed her years here at Kirkwood High School tremendously. She was deeply affected and influenced by the late Karen Fleischer, music teacher here in this community. And she also did a little bit of cross-country running under some guy by the name of Dave Holly. If she were here, she would say thank you very, very much, and go Pioneers!
Finally, Jennifer Quinn Williams, class of 1984. Jennifer opened St. Louis Closet Company with just herself and a van. Business leader and entrepreneur, founder and president, St. Louis Closet Company and St. Louis Sellers. St. Louis Business Association Young Entrepreneur of the Year, 1995. St. Louis Business Journal Top 25 Most Influential Businesswomen Award in 2007. Congratulations, Jennifer.
Okay, so everybody here is tired and hungry, so I'm going to go really fast. I want to thank from the bottom of my heart the selection committee. This is such an honor. I want to thank my sister, Colleen Quinn, who nominated me. Also an honor. As several other people have said tonight, I am so proud to answer the St. Louis question, where did you go to high school? I have no problem standing up and saying Kirkwood High School. A proud graduate in 1984, as my son here is wearing the pin, I heart 84. And I want to thank my parents for deciding to live in Kirkwood. Because of that, that's where I got to go to school. I loved every minute of Kirkwood High School, from my time on the award-winning yearbook staff, pom-pom student council of my senior year, Turkey Day, and serving the class of 1984 as a senior class officer. Two people who made a world of difference to me, not just in high school, but ever since I first met them. And I'm honored that they're both here tonight, Principal Franklin McCauley and journalism teacher H.L. Hall. He mentioned earlier that we said he was the meanest teacher. Now in journalism, I would choose the word toughest teacher. But he was also the best teacher. And there's not a single thing I do today that I don't remember him and Franklin McCauley. They were huge influences on my life, as well as everybody else at Kirkwood High. I am proud to be a graduate of Kirkwood High and proud that I continue to live in Kirkwood and raise my kids here, Matt and Hallie. So thank you very much.
One more time before we move on, again for our inductees to the first annual Hall of Fame. It's been a long night, that's right. Please do stay.
Thank you for being here. We will close with the Kirkwood High School a cappella choir singing the alma mater.
join in with the Pioneer Pride Band and Tommy Squad for the playing of the Kirkwood High School Victory Song, Varsity Valor.